Benny Andersson was never the man who craved the spotlight. While the world danced to ABBA's glittering hits, he was the quiet figure behind the glass, shaping their sound with painstaking care. From the silence of recording studios to the deafening roar of stadiums, Benny lived through the rise, collapse, and rebirth of one of pop's most iconic groups. Yet the story he tells today is not about sequins or fame, but about exhaustion, regret, fractured love, and the long silence that followed their global success. After decades of speculation, Benny has finally spoken, and his truth is far more personal than anyone expected. Born on December 16, 1946, in Stockholm's Vasa district, Benny grew up in a modest working-class home, his father, a civil engineer, and his grandfather, a self-taught musician, introduced him to the accordion when he was just 6. That humble instrument sparked a fascination with melody that would never leave him. He wasn't drawn to music for stardom, but for understanding. By teaching himself piano and memorizing melodies after only a listen or two, he developed an instinct for emotional depth in music. By 10, he was already performing for family and school gatherings. At 18, he joined the Stars, known as the Swedish Beatles, where his songwriting quickly set him apart. With hits like Sunny Girl and Wedding, Benny became recognized as the band's creative force. In 1966, a chance meeting changed everything. At a party, Benny jammed with Björn Ulvaeus, a fellow musician from the Hootenanny Singers. Their partnership was immediate and lasting. Benny the emotional composer, Björn the witty lyricist. Soon, their creative world expanded to include two remarkable singers, Agnetha Fältskog, already a solo star, and Onnifrid Frida Lindstedt, a powerful jazz-inspired vocalist. Together, they first attempted Eurovision in 1973 and failed. But in 1974, they returned with Waterloo and won, instantly launching them into international stardom. The group soon became known simply as ABBA, and Benny assumed the role of Sonic architect. Benny treated every track like a painting. He layered harmonies with meticulous care, introduced synthesizers before they were fashionable, and often spent days perfecting a single sound. He wasn't chasing trends, he was chasing timelessness. Songs like Knowing Me, Knowing You, and Fernando revealed his gift, music that sounded joyful on the surface but carried deep melancholy underneath. ABBA's bright melodies masked something darker, and that duality became their signature. Fans adored the glamour of Agnetha and Frida, and Björn's bittersweet lyrics gave shape to stories, but it was Benny who sculpted the music's emotional core. But behind the dazzling performances of the 1970s, ABBA's private lives began to fracture. In 1979, Björn and Agnetha divorced. The band pressed on professionally, but their work carried a new heaviness. 2 years later, Benny and Frida followed the same path. Their love story, born from music, could not withstand Benny's obsessive perfectionism. By 1981, Benny had fallen in love with television producer Monin Turklet. Though he was honest with Frida, their separation left a scar. Their final studio album, The Visitors, reflected the shift. Songs like Slipping Through My Fingers and When All Is Said and Done captured the sadness beneath the surface. The sparkle was gone, replaced with a quiet ache. Then, just as suddenly as they had risen, ABBA disappeared. Their final single, Under Attack, was released in December 1982, and then there was silence. No farewell tour, no last performance, only unanswered questions. Fans speculated endlessly. Was it money, personal drama, creative tension? For 40 years, the truth remained elusive. ABBA became frozen in time, remembered as the perfect pop group that vanished without explanation. That changed in 2020 for when Benny Andersson, long known for his privacy, finally gave a rare interview. He didn't spin the story or blame anyone. His words were simple. We were exhausted, the marriages had collapsed, the music no longer felt natural, and the joy was gone. Continuing, he admitted, would have destroyed them. In a follow-up interview in 2025, he explained further by the early 80s, the spark had disappeared. What had once been passion had become routine. Songs took longer, sessions were shorter, and it all felt like a job. ABBA hadn't failed, they had simply run out of fuel. For fans, this honesty was healing. At last, the silence had a reason: emotional exhaustion. Frida's life after ABBA took an unexpected turn. In 1992, she married Prince Heinrich Ruse of Plauen, entering European royalty and moving to a Swiss castle. But the fairy tale came at a cost. Frida struggled with aristocratic constraints that clashed with her artistic spirit. Then tragedy struck. In 1998, her daughter Lieselotte died in a car accident at just 30 years old. The loss was devastating. Frida withdrew from public life, grieving in seclusion by Lake Geneva. During that painful time, it was Benny who quietly reached out. Despite their past, he offered comfort, and together they shared a bond no one else could understand. They didn't reminisce about fame, they simply remembered each other as the people they once were before the world claimed them. Then, after decades of silence, the impossible happened. In 2018, ABBA reunited to record 2 new songs. The project eventually grew into ABBA Voyage, a groundbreaking 2021 album digital concert experience. Using motion capture and avatar technology, the group recreated their 1979 selves, performing nightly in a custom-built arena in London alongside a live band. Benny oversaw the smallest details, determined the music remain authentic. The show became a sensation, drawing over 1 million fans from around the world. When offered $1 billion to reunite for a traditional tour, ABBA declined. They weren't chasing nostalgia. They wanted to control their legacy, letting technology carry their music forward without forcing themselves into old roles. Now, at 78, Benny Andersson is finally unpacking what he once buried in his songs. He admits that music was his way of speaking emotions he couldn't share aloud. He once confessed, "I gave my best lines to songs, not to the people who needed to hear them from me." That raw admission reframes everything. Benny wasn't cold, he was afraid of confrontation, of vulnerability, of showing fragility. And in that fear lies the real reason ABBA unraveled. Not scandal, not betrayal, but the quiet inability to cope with the pressures of fame and heartbreak. Yet in his honesty, there is beauty. Benny's words bring closure to a story that once felt unfinished. ABBA's songs endure not because they were polished fantasies, but because they captured the real, messy truth of human emotion. They were never about perfection, they were about survival. For decades, fans sensed the ache beneath the melodies, and now Benny has confirmed it. The music wasn't an escape from their struggles, it was how they lived through them. And perhaps that is why, after all these years, ABBA's sound still resonates. The man at the piano, once hidden behind others' voices, has finally spoken. And his story reminds us that behind every song that makes the world dance, there may be unspoken pain, quiet resilience, and the fragile humanity of the artists who create it.